Hello everyone and good morning and welcome back to Sports Today. Of course, it's not the best of mornings if you're an Indian cricket fan. Unfortunately, yes, we're still very much reeling from what was a very, I would call it stunning, but I would say it's a hammering at the hands of England and of course India's subsequent exit in the semi-finals. And naturally, there were a lot of people who had a lot of things to say. Truth be told, we on this channel have covered a lot of things and we've had a lot of people talk to us and tell us where they think they went wrong. If you haven't checked that content out yet, do go to the channel and check it out. But for me, at least to start with, we're going to take a slightly different angle. I'm going to look at a few reactions from former cricketers and cricket commentators and experts on social media and what it is exactly that they had to say with regards to India's loss. Now, first off, let's start with what Dora Ganesh had to say. He put it very poignantly and very pointedly, I would say. He said that don't the English openers believe in assessing the conditions and seeing off the new ball? It was, of course, a not so subtle jab at India's openers, KL Rahul and Rohit Sharma, who, to be fair to Ganesh, he's criticized a lot and very correctly so, in the sense that India's openers don't really start the game aggressively, especially in these conditions. They haven't looked to do that. And in fact, if you look at the average economy that India have of terms of scoring runs in the power play, it's at the levels of Netherlands and Zimbabwe. So that's not a good place to be, considering, again, both of India's openers are batters of repute. They are supposedly world-class players who have the ability to hit shots. They have the ability to clear the boundaries. So India needed to be doing better in that regard. But of course, that wasn't the only major criticism that people had. One of the other big criticisms that most people had was of India's lack of potency in the middle overs. Okay, fine. The opening overs, in the first few overs, you weren't getting too much swing. So you can understand that the bowlers might not have been as effective. But what about the middle overs? And perhaps Irfan Pathan summed it up best when he tweeted out just two words to, of course, talk about India's problems in the middle overs. Yuzi Chahal. That's it. That's all he said. And again, it comes back to a point a lot of us have made, is that Ashwin, despite whatever qualities he might possess as a bowler, in the middle overs of a T20I match is not getting you wickets. And Chahal, on the other hand, is someone who most bowlers might look to attack, but if they look to attack, they know they're running the risk of getting out to him. And even if they don't attack him, more often than not, he will pick up a wicket or two in the middle overs, and that's very important to actually stifle the flow of runs. Contrast it with England's approach in terms of they bowled Adil Rashid in the middle overs, and he got one wicket, but the wicket he got was so key. It was Surya Kumar Yadav, the man who, through the middle overs, would have actually accelerated India's scoring. Once you got him, India had to play safe and wait for the death overs to actually get the result. With India, unfortunately, there was no wicket taker in the middle overs, and as a result, they suffered because not only did the openers not get a wicket, but no one else could. England registered a 10-wicket victory. Another reaction came from, of course, cricket commentator Harsha Bhogle, who criticized India's overall template in terms of the batting. He said that, look, India is still playing very conservative cricket. It was an issue that they hoped to address, and in all fairness, they did so in bilateral cricket. But here at the World Cup, India were constantly hoping that the back 10 overs would be enough to bail them out today. And obviously, the tweet was made yesterday. He meant that today it wasn't enough. And that was in fact the truth, because if you watched India's batting, you had both Kohli and Pandya. Both of them looked to play slow, looked to play conservative through the middle overs and then launch an assault at the death. To be fair, it looked like a decent approach at that point. But when you were watching the England batters go free-flowing, you realize that the pitch didn't actually have as many demons, and that the Indians were actually being a little safety first rather than looking to play expressively and looking to actually, accelerate the scoring rate and ensure that they had a above par or above average score to defend in the second innings. It wasn't enough, obviously. Another reaction came in from Wasim Jafar, who's someone who's known to be a bit of a banter person on social media, but he said that, look, it was a heartbreaking loss for India, but you have to be fair and give England credit. You have to congratulate them for a clinical show on the big day and also on making the finals. Well played. Easy enough, is a very classy response. Unfortunately, that wasn't really the case with a lot of people who were, of course, focused on picking out the negatives or picking out what they felt were the problems with India's performances. Naturally, of course, since it's social media, we can't escape without just a little bit of humor, and that comes courtesy of the good folks at Iceland Cricket, who said, look, two devastatingly one-sided semi-finals, especially the second game. And that's true. The second game really was very one-sided, because at least in the New Zealand-Pakistan game, New Zealand did manage to pick up a few wickets. India couldn't even do that. And the banter part of it was them saying that England and Pakistan can now play the eagerly awaited 8th clash of their T20I series, this time on neutral territory. Of course, it's in reference to the fact that before the World Cup, England and Pakistan played a 7-match T20I series in Pakistan. And remember, England had won that series 4-3, but it was a very closely contested series. And now that series, which we saw a lot of, obviously, that match taking place, will now be played for the 8th time. Winner takes all. And very tongue-in-cheek manner they added, no doubt the inquests are already beginning by Indian fans after today's annihilation. And much as I hate to, you have to agree with Iceland cricket, it really was an annihilation, and they were correct. The inquest has begun, and considering the fact that we're live on this channel with you right now, it's still very much ongoing. But enough of the cricket news for now. There's plenty more to come still. Stay tuned, because even I'll be bringing you a couple of videos. Let's move on to some news on sports beyond cricket. Manchester United avenged their loss, if you can call it that, to Aston Villa in the Premier League by actually beating them 4-2 in the Carabao Cup. United are now in the round of 16, if I'm not wrong. And they are, of course, they've been in interesting form in recent times. Remember, they made it to the Europa League round of 32. They're in the top 4 of the Premier League currently. Obviously, the loss to Villa wasn't ideal, but shows good character that they managed to come back and get the victory like this. They, of course, won the only major football team in action. Real Madrid were taking on Cadiz in the La Liga. Now, of course, you'd remember that prior to this, Real Madrid were playing what was their game in hand, because they played one less game than Barca. They beat Cadiz 2-1 courtesy of a wonderfully volleyed goal from Toni Kroos. Believe you me, if you haven't seen it, go and check it out. Amazing goal, and shows the mastery of the ball that man has. But the good news with that win is that Real are now only 2 points behind Barcelona, which, truth be told, would be a more accurate representation of the gap, given that both teams have now played the same number of games. Even Real know that all they need is one Barcelona loss for them to actually potentially get back ahead in the league standings. A little bit of Formula One news now, and this man right here, Pierre Gasly, is on the cusp of the rather embarrassing one-race ban. Why is it embarrassing? Well, because he will actually be getting that race ban because he's accumulated a number of penalty points on his FIA super license. Now, the penalty point system has been in place since around 2012, if I'm not mistaken, and it's something that is used as a deterrent for drivers to actually ensure that they aren't doing dangerous things or circumventing the rules. Because what happens is, anytime they break a rule, they'll get, depending on the nature of the punishment, 1, 2 or 3 penalty points on their super license. If you reach 12 points within the span of a calendar year, and the calendar year will obviously keep refreshing, then you will be getting an automatic one-race ban. Gasly currently has 10 points, but the reason it's an embarrassing situation for him is that he's not really been driving rashly. That's the thing. There's been very, very small infringements that have caught up with him, and he is actually trying his best to ensure that he doesn't actually cop that one race ban. And to be fair, many of his peers, including Mercedes driver George Russell, have spoken up in his defense saying, look, the system needs a bit of modification. It's meant to be a deterrent to dangerous driving, and Pierre is not a dangerous driver. He's just unfortunately been caught up in a lot of minor incidents, and a one-race ban would actually seem unfair considering he's not really done too much wrong. The kind of mistakes he's made are mistakes that most drivers make all the time, and therefore it needs a bit of a look at. Whether or not it will happen is something that remains to be seen, but of course, don't forget, this weekend we have the Brazilian Grand Prix coming up, so do stay tuned for that. We'll be bringing you a bit of coverage from that as well. For now though, I will take your leave. Thank you all so much for joining us. As always, don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel, and tap the bell icon if you haven't already. And of course, leave us a comment. How disappointed were you by India's loss? Let us know. Don't be afraid to vent out your feelings. And don't also be afraid to go ahead and follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Last but not least, download the AajTak app too. Thank you all for joining us. I hope to see you with us through the day. But for now, goodbye.